See, frontiers aren't easy. Frontiers are hard. And by its very nature, the unknown can be a cruel, cruel thing.
We're the only animal, I believe, that thinks, I wonder what's over that hill, and it might be something phenomenal, and I've got to climb it and look over there, even though it might kill me to do so.
I think the process was exactly the same. When people started walking out of Africa, they sent out a probe that said, I want you to walk 5 days that way, see what you see, and then come back. And if it's suitable, we're all going to go there.
This is the story of space pioneers, the outlaws determined to make humans an interstellar species.
We are taking the first steps beyond the Earth to become a spacefaring species. We are just stardust going home.
Welcome to Mojave here in the high desert of California on this incredible day. Now you are going to witness history in the making.
I started the X Prize Foundation. I've been dreaming about space 40 plus years. It became my purpose in life to be part of the human transformation on and off the planet. So in May 96, I'm on stage under the arch in St. Louis announcing this $10 million prize. To win it, you had to build a 3-person spaceship. You had to fly to 100 kilometers altitude, and within 2 weeks make the trip again. It was really important that the vehicles be reusable. If you could do that, fly with the same vehicle twice in 2 weeks with 3 people, we felt that was the beginning of a commercial space arena.
We knew the impact we wanted to have in terms of the creation of a new industry. What we didn't know was where the money was going to come from.
It didn't look to me like X Prize was ever going to succeed in having $10 million in the bank to give away.
What I suggested to Peter was that we take out an insurance policy against this happening.
Problem was I didn't have $3 million to pay the policy.
As fate would have it, that's when we met Anusha Ansari.
He told me about his vision of the X Prize, and it immediately resonated with me and my family, and as something that will allow us to really open the door for a whole new generation of people who have this unfulfilled dream of going to space.
The Ansari family, Anusha, Hamid, Amir, paid the balloon payment on the whole insurance policy, made it valid through the end of 2004, and also covered the cost of the rest of the competition, putting up themselves, almost $10 million, and we named it the Ansari X Prize in their honor.
Visualize 2 switches here, but I want them in this axis. You don't want to be out in space with your arm pushing on a toggle switch when you have vibration and 3G forward.
Spaceship One was based on the configuration of the X-15 rocket plane.
For now, somebody ought to just go to the junkyard. You'll find all kinds of wrecked vans there. And just take some wrenches and go get you a bunch of those handles, because there's some real nice ones automotive guys use.
Everything on these things was cables and levers and, pulleys. The spaceship was underneath Spaceship One, and then a guy sitting in the back would pull a big lever, sort of like a big garage door opener.
East away. It's a clean break. Feels like a clean break.
This thing fired, and then it was just like, hang on for dear life. Byrd had seen at Edwards that the X-15 had had a fatal accident.
You're running at 30%. 30%?
It was so hard to control on the way back in. You had to really work the controls to avoid coming in at the wrong angle. You're going Mach 6 or something like that. Very, very fast. And if you hit the atmosphere at the wrong angle, the plane could shear apart and break up.
I wanted to find a solution for that risk. To have breakthroughs, you must have confidence in nonsense, okay? That's why only weird guys tend to have the breakthroughs. A sensible person won't have a breakthrough because he writes it off real quickly as nonsense, and therefore he doesn't ever do something that's nonsense.
What they had to do was engage this system called the feather, where the back end of the craft tilted upward. And this was based on designs that Burt Rutan had built as a kid. He didn't have the money to do radio-controlled airplanes, so he had like a fuse in there. And this was common for people in the 50s flying model airplanes.
And you light it off, and it burns real slow, and then it burns through the rubber band, and it flips the tail up.
It was called a dethermalizer. And it made it flip up, and it just made the plane just stop where it was and just gently float back to Earth.
Today, pilot Brian Binney will make the second attempt.
Nice try.
And if Brian's successful, the Mojave Aerospace venture team will win the $10 million. Now, last Wednesday, Mike Melville completed the first required flight. That flight last week captured the world's attention.
This is a money flight, baby.
The world is with you. The heavens are with you.
This guy's gonna make me cry. It's such a sweet transition, riding that rocket motor. And you shut it down.
Roger, shut down.
And instantly it becomes silent. There's no vibrations, there's nothing, and you're instantly weightless. You look up, and there's the black void to the space.
Oh, it's really quiet up here.
It might spook you a little bit, but you sense its majesty.
We are the first of the products of this planet that has developed the intellect and the evolved capability to start to crawl out of the nest. And so it's the natural extension of the process that has happened. Since the first little wriggling thing got a tail and could start to move, our tail now is on the back of a rocket.
Today we make history. Today the winners are the people of Earth. Today we go to the stars. 2 weeks before the flight, Richard Branson had come in and negotiated the rights to buy the winning technology to create Virgin Galactic.
I love it. Pretty nice kickoff for space tourism, huh?
The first thing I saw is William Shatner wearing an Ansari X Prize hat. It said Ansari X Prize on it, waiting to load the bus with us. And I thought to myself, never in my life, growing up as a girl in Iran, imagine that Captain Kirk will be standing next to me wearing my name on a hat. And it was precious. It was completely precious.
There is definitely a new space race happening. It's different from the first space race, which was international Cold War era competition. This new space race is an entrepreneurial space race. It's a competition for ideas, a competition to be the first.
Branson is brilliant at public relations, and that's a big part of his success, I think.
Thank you very much for coming today. This is truly an historic occasion. It's one of the most important industrial projects of the 21st century.
The advantage, I think, that we have is that Spaceship One has already been into space 3 times. So I think that the technology has been proven, it's tested, and it works. And the most important thing is that we won't put people into space until we've done many, many flights into space with our astronauts.
I get overwhelmed, almost emotional, because I have this opportunity, you know? Less than 500 people have left the planet, and God has enabled me to be one of them.
If we have people paying money on a regular basis to do something in space, that's self-sustaining. That's a sustainable industry, a business that then can keep investing in itself and keep expanding it, offering more services to more people. And that's how we're going to get there on a permanent basis.
The fever of the Ansari X Prize draws not just space industry giants, but smaller contenders as well. But no matter the size, the risks remain.
There she is. Remember going 50 meters up, 50 meters up, 50 meters across, 50 meters down. Beautiful. It looks easy, everyone, doesn't it?
This one is Armadillo Aerospace is taking up a little vehicle. I don't know specifically the rules, but they have to go up, go over, and come down within a certain period of time, a certain height.
Oh, no, it's on fire. That's not good.
You have any idea what happened?
Nope. It's another day in rocketry. Sometimes things don't go the way you thought.
You know, we have different classes of players in this field. We have the billionaires who roll in with their .com money and or Bob Bigelow, who owns Budget Suites of America and casinos and multi-billionaire, Richard Branson, who everybody's aware of. And then we have the little guys. We have companies like Xcore. I call Xcore a covered dish company, because when I went out to their place in the early days, they didn't have enough money to pay their employees to go off-site and buy lunch. So they would take turns bringing casseroles in Tupperware that they had made at home.
Sometimes we have no money, and then we eat soup. It just depends. Our setbacks have mostly been financial. We don't have a billionaire writing checks for us.
Test article here is the engineering mock-up for the Lynx spacecraft. It's hell of bragging rights. You know, you meet somebody at the bar. What do you do? Oh, I'm a firefighter, or whatever. Spaceships. I built spaceships. The toughest part of building a reusable spacecraft is the propulsion system. What is generally not recognized is that rocket engines wear out very quickly. And that's taken us the better part of 14 years to perfect that propulsion system. Our vehicle land, refuel, and fly again. Branson's vehicle, he's got to replace the entire engine after every flight because it's no good after one flight. On how much it's cost us to build and develop it, it's going to be somewhere in the range of $50 to $60 million.
Unlike creating applications for like a cell phone or a computer, this is one that takes some money to get involved in. It's not something you can sit around in your house and write the codes for a new kind of software and suddenly become a billionaire.
Good morning, listeners. I am with the rocket plane team that is here, and they have just unveiled their new plane. And Chuck Lauer is sitting to my left. Chuck, I have a question for you because you're on the business and management side. You are being compared to Virgin and to Xcore and to other...
Now we eat it, yes.
Well, you know, how do you get compared to someone who says they're going to spend $1.5 billion on doing what all of you are doing for far, far less?
We're not a publicly traded company. We won't be for a long time, if ever. And so this is it's a big boys game.
It's very clear to me that the lawyer wants me to send him money, and it's very clear to me that the bank wants me to come there with $20,000 to pay the other fee. I don't have that money. I'm trying to find it. I'm trying to find money from everywhere in any way I can, just like I always do. All right, look at your email. I've been the dreamer and the entrepreneur, and it has put a lot of stress on our marriage, and I'm not sure what the outcome there is either.
So there's a price for a dream, I guess.
Big price.
It's hard to get a read on all this because nobody likes to talk about their company going under or that they're about to, especially to the press. You know, they're not going to go on record saying, yeah, we're pretty much broke. You know, I'm sitting here in my underpants in my basement here. But yeah, write the story. No, they're not going to say that. They're going, yeah, we're going great guns. And they're hoping the story will help, you know, get them off the ground. You know, some investor will, you know, throw some cash at them.
People in the entrepreneurial segment of space, what's called the new space industry, share that fundamental vision and goal of bettering the quality of life for everyone on Earth.
Some of our environmental friends challenge, why are we spending money going to space? Well, because we're going to space for Earth and the environment and to learn how to better manage it and understand it.
When I was looking down at some parts of the Earth, particularly China, Indonesia, Africa, South America, you can really see a tremendous effect that people are having on the atmosphere and on the world. These places are so polluted, it's unreal. How do we look after this Earth of our own?
Never thought I'd be up here. I mean, I've come to Hawaii a lot of times, but this is something I never thought I'd be at. The whole idea of bringing in renewable energy for Earth is you put solar collectors in space where the sun shines all the time, and you convert the solar energy to electricity, and then you beam the power down to the Earth, and you collect it on the ground and then put it into the grid. They beamed a microwave beam 100 kilometers from that point to this point, and the 100 kilometers of atmosphere from here to here is the same as 100 kilometers of atmosphere going up that way into space. So you have energy without pollution, without carbon impact, and you can bring the power to the Earth cleanly from space.
This planet is incredibly precious. We become incredibly precious. Because if this is the only planet that has been able to evolve such an ecosystem as we have, if this is the only planet that has been able to evolve a sentient species like ourselves, and we're it, then we are the only means by which the universe will know of itself.
We need to expand the human race into self-sustaining civilizations off the Earth to not have all our eggs in one basket.
The theme of survival runs through a lot of these entrepreneurial efforts. X-Corp, as Stephen Hawking has seen, and Elon Musk sees as well, that we're really one big asteroid strike away from not having a civilization.
How could we possibly make the human race multiplanetary? When you think that since 1957, with Sputnik's launch, that of all the thousands upon thousands of rockets that have left the Earth, every single one of those rockets has taken with it from the surface of the Earth every gram of material, whether it's water or food for people or energy or batteries or whatever it was, that everything that it would ever need throughout its entire lifetime, which in many cases could be decades, they've had to drag it from the Earth. And you pay such a price to bring things to space from the Earth that if we could begin to use resources in space, it would dramatically change the equation.
You gotta be able to utilize space resources to survive there. You've got to be able to live off the land. You know, sometimes, if you look at a Conestoga wagon pulled by horses, I like to point out to people that that was, in a sense, the spaceship of its time. A multi-purpose exploration and settlement vehicle. And the motors of that multi-purpose vehicle were horses or oxen, propelled by grass. They lived off the land. If we had had to import all the propellant for the horses and oxen that would have been used to try and settle the North American continent in our experiment, it wouldn't have happened. The people had to survive by what they hunted for, what they harvested. They had to live in buildings they built by using what the land provided. Unless we can do that on this new frontier, as we did in the old frontier, there will be no frontier.
There's some debate about where we should do our first colonies. Some people say we should do it free floating. You know, why do we have to go to some planetary body? Why can't we just, you know, go to an asteroid and mine resources there, get the metals we need and everything else and build a colony?
Personally, give me a torus. Give me a large enough space that we can plant our crops and grow and be self-sustaining. I personally believe that the ultimate love for humanity and the ultimate faith in humanity is living in something that humans made. Because boy, if they make a mistake, you're dead. That's faith.
One of the things that's neat about free space, we can build habitats in space that rotate and produce what we call artificial gravity. And you can build those in such a way that we can basically reproduce the 1G gravity field of the Earth in space and the climate. You can't do that on the moon, and you can't do that on Mars because you're stuck with the gravity of the object you're on. I think the big action is going to be the space between worlds, because that's where the resources are essentially infinite, and we have the space to build anything as big as we want forever.
Some people say the moon might be a good place to start because, you know, maybe you could beam back solar energy. There might be actual export products that could help make it sustainable.
By the way, we can terraform the moon. People say, well, no, you can't. There's such low gravity. Yeah, you could. You could start by putting domes over the craters, and then you could move on from there by just pumping atmospheric gases in at a rate that's higher than you're losing them. There's already an atmosphere on the moon, and it's extremely tenuous, and that's just from the outgassing and the gases and the dust and things like that that have been created by us being up there.
We'll go to the moon, we will set up a permanent base on the moon, and we will figure out all those things we need to know and find out all the things that we learn and decide when this is worthwhile and when we've invented enough things, and then we'll go further and we'll go to Mars.
Mars is a real destination because it's much more Earth-like. It has the same amount of land, basically, as Earth. It's a third the size because it has no oceans. And it's got a roughly Earth-like day-night cycle. You know, it's about 24 hours, 23, something like that. It's just slightly off. It's got an atmosphere. You know, potentially you could terraform Mars. Maybe you could, you know, if you could start, you know, if you could find enough carbon dioxide and water and things in the ground, and maybe start pumping it into the atmosphere, you might be able to create an Earth-like habitat over hundreds of years. So that's one line of thinking, too, that you keep building. There's no way you can keep building on the moon. It's always going to be an airless rock. But Mars, potentially you could.
I'm not a big fan of robots. I love software, but I don't like robots. What it takes them a week or a month to do, a human could do in an afternoon. When you start sending people, going to be some guy, he's up there, he's looking out the window and goes, what's that? A probe doesn't do that. A probe looks for what it's told to look for. Bugs Bunny's over here dancing up and down. It wasn't programmed to look for Bugs Bunny. It doesn't see Bugs Bunny. People see stuff. This is the exciting thing. This is what's going to happen.
This is day 2 at the NASTAR Center. We're now ready for the real space flight simulation. So let's get in and let's get started.
They're signing up now, and there's still an apprehension, but there's that belief. There's that now that mindset's shifted slightly. People of all ages, anywhere from 22 to 88 years of age, they are going to be going to space in our lifetime. It's pretty exciting.
Here he goes. Get on it now. He's at 5, 6, 7. He's just kind of pursing his lips, but only getting a cheek full of air in. Eyes are gone. Look, he's gone already. That hurts. Now, G's are back down to 1.2. Oxygenated blood is returning to his brain. He does his funky chicken as he wakes up. And now he's starting to realize, ooh, where am I? And the instructor's saying, don't forget, we got you on video camera. Oh, I'm on video? Okay. Yeah, I'm on video. How's my hair look? My hair look good?
Every time we do that, you get one step closer to the actual flight, flying into space.
Launch.
Looking good. How you feeling?
We got 7 billion people. You find enough with the right motivators, send them. Let them go to Enceladus. Why not? They will sign. You know, like I sign, you sign. I don't care if I hurt my toe. Let them go.
And certain private space organizations are looking to do exactly that. Mars One is a project attempting to start a human settlement on Mars by 2023. The crew is actually going to stay and live on Mars with the intention to remain there for the rest of their lives.
I think there's merit to the idea that we could colonize Mars.
The crew will depart on September 2022 when the settlement is fully operational and habitable.
When I first heard about Mars One, it was actually on the Colbert Report, and they were kind of making fun of it, and I thought, geez, this is a crazy idea. And I think everyone probably thought that was a crazy idea. But after a little bit of consideration, I thought, you know, this makes a lot of sense. If I can use my life to help humanity become a multi-planet species and contribute in this way, then I consider that a life well spent. And I think these are the types of adventures, these are the types of expeditions that really improve us. The director of selection, of crew selection for Mars One has actually proposed that they should select emotionally compatible bisexual couples to go on this kind of mission. And in a way, if you think about it, it kind of makes sense.
Most likely the early space colonists will be vegetarians. And the reason why is it requires less energy to, let's say, grow a pound of plant or vegetable material than it is to grow a pound of meat, for example. So definitely figuring out how we can grow vegetables successfully and consistently is going to be key to colonizing space.
It's very interesting when we think about beginning to move off planet and the different places that we're going to go and what may happen to the human species as we go there.
In a reduced gravity environment like Mars, we're going to be weaker because we do get conditioned to our environment.
Someday, if people who live in space in low gravity or are born there, they may need an Earth suit to return to Earth, meaning a suit that has an exoskeleton that supports their weaker structural bones.
If I were to lay suspended in jello 24 hours a day for the next 6 months, my body would radically alter itself. My muscles would waste away. How my body regulates blood pressure, if I was prone the whole time where it never had to lift the blood up to my head, all of those little subtle autonomic things would stop working. What would weightlessness do to the development of a fetus? Because you are suspended in a fluid inside the womb, so I don't know how much is gravity driven, but of course, lifting your head up, lifting your arms up, the balance system that develops, learning to focus your eyes is driven to some degree by the gravitational field that you're in. Learning to walk, learning to stand, those all obviously have a big effect on how your body develops.
Lovemaking in zero gravity is going to be a challenge. It's actually a little similar to lovemaking in a swimming pool or in the water. You do need to have one of the partners hanging on to something, and the other partner can be part of the lovemaking process.
There's something a writer called G. Harry Stein claims that he heard from actual astronauts existed. And there's no way to verify this. No one went on record, and Stein is gone now. But he said it was called the Three Dolphin Club instead of the Mile High Club. It's the Three Dolphin Club because supposedly dolphins require 3 to mate because they keep drifting apart. So it needs a third dolphin to push them together. So the Three Dolphin Club is supposedly a real thing that some people have joined. And so a honeymoon in space might be a chance to actually become a member of the Three Dolphin Club. Now, again, this is, it's not verifiable, but it makes a good story. And I think that would be part of the appeal. I mean, I would imagine it would be interesting if I had, an extra couple $1 million and I was getting married. I think that might be a good way to spend it.
Are we talking about a menage a trois?
I don't think so. A facilitator. I don't know if Bigelow plans to staff these places with his own people, so I don't know if the service would include that sort of thing. Robert Bigelow built this big real estate empire, and then around the end of the 1990s, he finally figured, well, I probably have enough money to do this now.
Bigelow's dream was to build the world's first space hotel.
Welcome to Bigelow Aerospace. Glad to see you all here.
Robert Bigelow's space hotel draws its inspiration from an unorthodox source.
I noticed that all the guards had this alien patch.
The logo is our unofficial mascot, or even official mascot of the alien head. Harkens back to Mr. Bigelow's interests in ufology and science fiction.
When he was 3 years old, his grandparents encountered what they could only assume were beings from another world on a highway somewhere outside of Las Vegas. The classic story, highway at night, the lights coming at you.
But they had a very close encounter with something, some kind of a machine that was extremely scary to them and came right at them and then at the last second zipped off.
The family believed this story, and so did Bigelow.
The message I got, not hearing this story over from my own grandparents, was that there are things out there that we knew nothing about. And I was hooked on space.
So we have already had 2 launches of Pathfinder spacecraft called Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 in 06 and 07.
What you're looking at is the beam in its compressed form. It's going to be shipped this way, and once it's in space, it'll deploy. It's going to expand to about 9 times its current compressed volume.
We consider ourselves the manufacturer of volumes for people to do a variety of things. Or if somebody that's a hotelier wanted to use a volume for guests, then we would contract with that hotelier. We would lease the structure to that hotelier, and they would send their guests up and back.
Somebody will get a fully reusable space transportation system. And when that happens, then the inner solar system is open for business.
2, 1, 0.
My computer is in first
We have liftoff, Falcon 9.
Elon Musk grew up in South Africa, and when he was 17, he decided he didn't want to support the apartheid government. So he went through Canada. His mother's Canadian. And then from there immigrated to the US, and he came here basically with nothing. Ended up at Stanford, and then dropped out of school.
Elon had big success with PayPal, selling PayPal to eBay for $1.5 billion. Rather than going off to a desert island, he decided to keep working.
And with that, he founded SpaceX.
Let's go look at the rockets. Okay, this is the Falcon 9 first stage tank. It comes back down for a water landing. We pick it up, bring it back, clean it up, and fly it again.
We're here to unveil Dragon version 2. We have an animation that shows you how Dragon version 2 will work. That's Dragon version 2, and it'll be capable of carrying 7 people, 7 astronauts, for several days. Dragon version 2 is capable of autonomously docking with the space station or potentially other things. Pull it down. So as the pilot, you're able to interact with the screens overhead, control the spacecraft, and then we've got all of the critical functions that are needed in an emergency situation as manual buttons. That's what you see in this area here. So you'll be able to land anywhere on Earth with the accuracy of a helicopter. That is how a 21st century spaceship should land.
Malcolm Gladwell, in his book The Tipping Point, speaks of a time when certain kinds of people, possessing different sort of skills and personalities, come together in a certain way, in a certain moment in time, doing certain things, and all of a sudden everything changes. We're right at the beginning of the tipping point right now.
When you first get to space, it's a brutal ride. It's a hugely punishing, high vibration, physical, forceful ride to get there. And what's beautiful about it is, at the end of it, as the engines shut off, you instantly become weightless. It's the magic of it happening that is the huge sensation, and you feel weightless. Imagine if there was a special room in your house, and imagine if you could come around the corner and stick your head down into the floor, and it was a bulbous glass bowl, and when you stuck your head down into that floor, you could see the entire world. The colors of the world are unexpectedly varied and beautiful and delightful and changing constantly. You can start to see the glow of the world, the glow of the limb of the horizon, and then the brightness of the man-made lights around the world, and the incredible vivid brightness of the lightning storms. It's like looking at jewelry.
Ground control to Major Tom. Ground control to Major Tom. Lock your Soyuz hatch and put your helmet on. Ground control to Major Tom. 7, 6. Commencing countdown, engines on. Detach from station and may God's love be with you. This is ground control to Major Tom. You've really made the grade, and the papers want to know whose shirts you wear. But it's time to guide the capsule if you dare.
O'Neill, when he died, just said keep it going until human beings are living in space. And that's what we're doing. And we're actually getting closer.
Leaving planet Earth and establishing permanent colonies, that is the next evolutionary step. It's on a par with the first creatures leaving the ocean and colonizing land. And we've seen within our lifetime the very first steps, we're sort of like the very first fish that are just sort of, poking out and hobbling up onto the shore for a little bit and then going back in. And I think that's where we're going.
We are taking the first steps beyond the Earth to become a spacefaring species. And here is an infinity of space, a universe. And it's still saying what it's always said. Are you ready to come out and play? We are just stardust going home.